Kimberly Hartsfield, you're following a big story on Medicare Advantage. What is the news?
Well, it's really interesting. You know, Medicare Advantage was put in place because the government was really looking for a better mousetrap than traditional Medicare. Yeah. And the sole premise of Medicare Advantage plans were to give private health plans the opportunity to deliver higher quality care at lower cost. Yep. And yet here we are this many years later, 20 plus years later, and it's done that exactly 0 times. So the Medicare spend per beneficiary for Medicare Advantage is actually higher than for traditional Medicare. Quality is equal or lower for Medicare Advantage plans. And really the news is that the administrative burden that has come along with the privatization of Medicare Advantage plans has been so great that the provider community is really fed up. And so it's become so arduous that they're actually reconsidering participation in those plans.
So worse product, higher cost, and more burden from an administrative standpoint.
Well, the thing that is really interesting to me is this is a problem that we actually created. So today, in 2023, Medicare Advantage sits at 48% of Medicare enrollment.
Yeah, sure.
So by 2032, that's expected to be 61%. So why is that happening? And why are all these people being drawn into Medicare Advantage plans if they're not really as great as anyone thinks they are? Yeah. Well, it's the age-old adage of follow the money. So sure. Brokers get paid to recruit members into Medicare Advantage plans.
Of course, yeah. Of course they would.
Well, nobody gets paid to recruit people into traditional Medicare.
Right.
And yet they get paid over $600 for the initial year of enrollment, and for every year that member stays enrolled with that particular Medicare Advantage plan,
wow,
they get paid about $300. So there are people that are actually making a ton of money off membership recruitment, and so it's very aggressive. And if you think about it, I have a good friend who actually called the insurance commissioner in her home state because her elderly father was basically being harassed to join a Medicare Advantage plan.
I hate to hear that.
And it almost borders on elder abuse, and yet there aren't very good guardrails to protect the intended population. And we have these aggressive people going after dollars for their pockets,
sure,
not to deliver better care in America.
So what is the response now from the provider side? What are they doing?
So, well, like I said, the administrative burden of managing Medicare Advantage members has become so difficult that they're about to throw in the towel. And there are providers and health systems all across the country that are putting pen to paper and coming to the conclusion that this just isn't worth it anymore. And so a really good example, if you think about, Mayo Clinic, obviously big, nationally recognized health system.
Huge, yeah.
In their 2 older age markets, so their Arizona market and their Florida market, they have ceased all Medicare Advantage participation.
Wow.
And I think it's interesting because you're starting to see, it was in the news today, there are a dozen more plans that are considering, or health systems that are considering dropping participation because it's just too much work and they're not getting reimbursed enough to cover their expenses, much less deal with the administrative burden that's been placed on their revenue cycle teams. It's just too much for too little.
Wow. Okay. So with 1,000 things for health systems to be paying attention to, this needs to be on the radar. I want to hear from you. What is it that health systems should be doing? And I'm also interested, if you are covered by a Medicare Advantage plan, what should that individual be doing?
So I'm going to take the second question first because this is going to become a real issue. Because as many health systems decide that they're going to drop Medicare Advantage participation, many of those members chose those plans because they participated with the hospital or health system that has traditionally taken care of them. And what we're already seeing, particularly on the West Coast in California markets,
Yeah.
LA specifically, they're finding themselves unable to find care because there aren't hospitals and health systems and employed doctors that participate any longer that are there to take care of them. And so for members, they're going to have to really watch the news and consider this moving forward, because the plan that you had last year may not be an acceptable plan for you this year.
Wow. Okay.
And for the provider community, it really is going to mean watching this. And it's interesting because it hasn't just been large academic medical centers. They're sole community providers and hospitals, small to large, that have decided that the participation isn't worth the effort anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think the ball is just getting rolling, and I think we're going to see the tide kind of swing back toward traditional Medicare, which nobody ever thought that was going to be the good news.
Sure.
Oh, Medicare is going to pay me, but you knew you were getting paid in 7 to 14 days.
Yep.
The administrative burden wasn't, you knew the rules didn't change, and that's what changed with Medicare Advantage.
Yeah.
They changed all of the rules.
Wow.
And they changed them arbitrarily among the different plans. So you didn't have to learn one set of rules. You had to learn 70 sets of rules. And they change them all the time with a provider bulletin that's posted online that no one in your plan may have access to. So that's been a real challenge. So I think going forward, you're going to see more and more CFOs putting pen to paper and doing the calculations to say, is this worth our time, or should we be focusing our community efforts elsewhere to serve our mission?
Wow. Okay, you've been a longtime subject matter expert for VisitQuate, a longtime advisor for the provider leaders. If someone wants to learn more, follow up with you, kind of get the details, how can they get in touch with you?
By all means, find me on LinkedIn, not hard to find, or find me through visitquate.com.
Right on. Thank you, Kimberly Hartsfield, for sharing your thoughts.
Thanks a bunch, Cole.
Right on.